open the file materials.max. This file contains the bedroom that we have been working on in the previous parts. In this file, there are Vray physical cameras, a Vray sun, Vray lights and Vray IES lights. I have assigned a grey color to the entire scene since we will now explore the materials together. As far as the rendering settings are concerned, I am using the progressive image sampler and I have set to do 5-minute test renders. We have said that the renders we will get will be pretty noisy, but this is fine for the testing phase that we are in. If you want, you can also set to do 10 or 15-minute tests, if you want to see, let's say, clearer renders. Let's hit the render button to see what we get so far. The render we get is too bright, so let's add the exposure layer and reduce both the exposure and the highlight burn value. That's better. As I said, the entire scene has a light grey color and we will start creating one by one the materials. In order to create a material, we need to open the material editor. To do so, click on the Material Editor button from the main toolbar or click the M button from your keyboard. There are two interfaces to the Material Editor, the Slate, which is this one, and the Compact Material Editor. To switch between the two, click on the menu Modes in the Material Editor and select the look you want. Let's click on the Compact to also see how it looks. I personally only use the Slate Material Editor, but I see that there are many 3D artists who for some reason prefer the Compact, so at the end of this part I will also analyze the Compact so that you can choose which interface you prefer. The Slate Material Editor has three main columns: the Material Browser, the Active View, and the Parameter Editor. To create a material, select it from the Material Browser, drag it to the Active View, and you will see its parameters in the third column. More specifically, go to the Material Browser, go to Materials, then Vray, and select and drag the Vray MTL in the Active View, View 1. The Vray material is the typical material that Vray offers. In the Active View, the material appears as a node. This is the material's preview, the material's name, and I will explain this shortly. Double-click anywhere on the node and the material's settings open the Material Parameter Editor. Another way to create a Vray material is to right-click in the Active View and select Materials, Vray, Vray MTL. You can click, hold and drag to reposition a material in the Active View. Moreover, we can zoom in, zoom out or pan in the Active View. When you don't want a material, simply select it and hit the Delete button from your keyboard. Let's say that we want to create the wood finish that will go to the wardrobe, the coffee table, the cabinets and the slats. First, let's resize the Material Editor and move it so that we can see both the Material Editor and our objects. Now, click on the circle you see on the right side of the Material node, hold it, drag and drop it on the wardrobe. We don't see any difference because the default Vray material is a grey color and I have already assigned a grey color to the scene, so you can't see the difference. Let's go to the material's parameters. Double-click anywhere on the node and we can see the settings on the third column. Up here is the material's name. Vray automatically names every new material we create, but we can come here and type the name we want, let's say wood. When I type the name here, it automatically renames the node in the active view. Go to the basic parameters rollout. From the diffuse section, we set the color of our object. So what we need to do is to click on the diffuse color and select the desired color. Just picked one randomly now. Then we can go to the whiteness section and adjust how dark or bright the color will look. Any changes we make, we can see them real time in the viewport since we have assigned this material to the wardrobe. So now that we can distinguish our material, let's go and assign it to the other wooden surfaces as well. Let me repeat the process. We click on the circle we see on the right side of the material node, hold, drag and drop it on our object. Many get confused and try to drag the whole material onto the object, something like this, but believe me, this won't work. Doing that will just reposition the material in the material editor. Another way to assign a material is to select our object, let's say these slats, click on our material to activate it, and then click on the fourth button in the material editor, the Assign Material to Selection. As the name of the command says, the material is assigned to the selected object. The Slate Material Editor is a quite big dialog box, so you will see me keep moving it around while I'm working on the materials so that doesn't block the viewport. This is kind of annoying at the beginning, but you will get used to it after working on a few projects. Let's also assign the material to the cabinets and to the wooden walls. So far, we have just applied a color to the objects, but we said that we want to create a wood material. So the wood, it isn't just a simple color, but it's a texture. How do we add a texture? Next to the color field, there is a small button. Click on it and the Material Map browser opens. Go to Maps, Vray, and choose Vray Bitmap. Now, if you are using an older version of Vray, then you won't see the Vray bitmap here. In this case, you need to go to Maps, General, and choose Bitmap. I will choose the Vray bitmap and hit OK. Now, another node appears in the active view, the Vray bitmap, and it is connected to the diffuse map with a wire. So here, it informs us that our material has a bitmap assigned to the diffuse parameter. Moreover, in the settings next to the diffuse color, we see the letter M, map. Double-click on the Vray bitmap node to open its parameters. So, wherever we double-click, we see that node's parameters on the third column of the material editor. If I double-click on the Vray material, I see its parameters here. If I double-click on the Vray bitmap, I now see its parameters here. Go to the Parameters rollout, and next to the bitmap setting, click on the three dots button. Go to the folder with the materials and select the wood texture that I have provided. Now you can see a preview of the wood in the active view. But in our viewport, the furniture still looks like a plain color. And if I hit the render button, they render as wood. So, every time we add a texture, we need to select the Vray bitmap node and click on the Show Shaded Material in Viewport button. Now we can see the shaded material, our bitmap, in the viewport as well. But even if you forget to enable this button, Vray will render the bitmap. If you see how the wood applies on the objects, I would like it to change direction and basically rotate by 90 degrees. To do so, go to the Vray bitmap parameters and find the coordinates rollout. Go to the angle and type in the W field the desired rotation. We will type 90 degrees. And now, that's great. If we want to adjust the scale of the texture, go to the coordinates rollout and play with the tiling. If I make it 2 by 2, the size of the texture is reduced by 50%. If I make it 0.5 by 0.5, I double the size. You don't have to put the same values. I can have this 1 and make this 1.5 to only squeeze the texture's width. Moreover, instead of typing a value, we can play with the arrows. Let me take this back to 1 by 1. When you work on the materials, for me it's crucial that you do crop renders to save time. So let me go to the render setup dialog box and do a crop render here. The wardrobe does look like wood, but it is pretty flat. For a material to render realistic, we need to apply more attributes than just assigning a texture on the diffuse map. Go to the material editor and to the Vray materials parameters. Up until now, we have seen the diffuse color and the diffuse map. Now, let's move on to the reflect color and the reflect map. How does reflect work? Click on the reflect color. When reflect is black, our material is matte. It doesn't reflect. The lower I go towards white, the more reflective my material will get. So if I set it to white, I will get a very reflective surface. Let's make the reflect color white and render. Let me repeat it one more time. When reflect is black, the material is matte. It doesn't reflect. The lower I go towards white, the more reflective my material will get. And you see that when the reflect color is white, we have a very reflective wood. I can see here the bed reflecting on this side of the wardrobe. In the front, you can't really see it because you don't have any objects to reflect on it, just the floor that reflects on the wardrobe down here. When we see the reflections, they are clear. What do I mean by that? That we can clearly understand what reflects on our surface. So, if I take a look at here, I can see that this is the bed. A material can have different types of glossiness, of reflectivity. It can be a polished finish, where the reflections are clear, or it can have a satin finish, where the reflections are blurred. So it is still a reflective finish, but you can't understand what is being reflected on it. How do we convert a polished finish to a satin one? Through the glossiness value in the reflect section. When the glossiness is 1, we have a polished finish. The lower we go, the blurrier the reflections will get. Let's try 0.8 and render. Now, the wood is glossy, but we can't understand anymore that this is the bed that is being reflected here. Well, maybe we can if we pay a lot of attention, and even then we can go even lower to 0.6, let's say. But I like the result I get here. So you can see that the moment we added some reflections to our material and adjusted the reflective glossiness, we got a really nice wooden finish. Let's now render the full viewport to see how the other wooden objects also render. Don't forget that we can reduce the reflectivity of a material by going to the reflect color and instead of white, making it gray. Let me set it to a medium gray, a value of 135, and do one more render. Now, the wood is still reflective, but not as much as it was before. Instead of a color, we can assign a texture to the reflect setting. How does a texture work in reflect? We need to choose a grayscale or black and white texture. And the philosophy is the same as when applying a color. Where Vray sees black, it will make that part of the object matte. Where it sees white, it will make it very reflective. And where it sees grey, it will adjust it accordingly. So, when we use a texture in the reflect setting, we achieve variety in the reflections instead of the whole surface to render the same. We can either click on the box next to the reflect color and choose Vray bitmap, or we can go to the Material Map browser, go to Maps, Vray, and drag the Vray bitmap in the active view, and then connect it to the reflect map. Let me select this and delete it. Another way is to right-click and choose Maps, Vray, Vray bitmap, and connect it to the reflect map. Finally, we can select this Vray bitmap, hold the Shift key and drag it. It's like when we clone an object and then connect it to the reflect map. You see, there are several ways to do the same thing. I want you to start getting familiar with the material editor, so start trying all these options to get comfortable with it. So I have copied the diffuse map here, but as we said, we need to put a grayscale image. Double-click on the Vray bitmap node that connects to the reflect map to open its parameters. Click on the three dots button next to the bitmap to choose another image. I have prepared 3 different grayscale textures for you. Let's start with the wood ref. In order to see how it applies to the wardrobe, select the grayscale Vray bitmap and click on the Show Shaded Material in Viewport button. So we also need to rotate this texture by 90 degrees. And actually, put this back to 0. It keeps the same settings as the bitmap we copied. In this texture, the grey hues are very similar to each other, and this means that the variation to the reflectivity will be pretty smooth. The darker greys will reflect less, the lighter greys will reflect more, but the colors here are pretty similar to each other, so the result will be very smooth. You won't really see the difference. Let's also right-click in the preview and select Open Preview window and increase it so that you can see how our material adjusts depending on the selected texture. Now, let's click again on the 3 dots and select the second image, the wood ref 2. In this image, I have increased the contrast, and so the difference between the dark and the bright areas is more noticeable. Here, you see that there are areas that reflect and areas that are matte, and there is a random pattern between the two. Let's now try the third texture, wood ref 3. Here, I have increased the contrast even more, and now we get the feeling of a dirty texture of an old, used wood. Depending on the look you are after, you load the respective texture on the reflect map. Let's do a test with the wood ref 3 to see how it looks on our wardrobe. And now let me delete the bitmap. I want to keep the color I had. Let's also select the diffuse bitmap and click on Show Shaded Material in Viewport to see again our wood texture. To sum up, to create a wood texture, load the texture you want on the diffuse map, then go and play with the reflectivity. Either set a color or load a grayscale texture depending on the look you are after. Double-click on the wood material and scroll down to find the map's rollout. Here is a list of all the maps we can load, and it's the same list we see in the active view below the name of our material. Next to its bitmap and setting, you see a percentage and a checkbox. If I disable the checkbox, I am asking Vray to ignore the texture I loaded and give priority to the color I have set. Let's enable it back. If I make the percentage 50, then I am asking Vray to blend 50% of the texture and 50% of the color I have set in the diffuse color. If I make it 80, then I blend 80% of the texture and 20% of the color. So, if I want to make my wood one tone darker, I can make the diffuse color black and make the percentage here 90 or 80. And you can see in the preview that it gets darker and darker. Let me take this back to 100. We are all done with the wood texture and now we are ready to move on to the next material, the headboard fabric. Go to the material editor, let's pan and push this aside to create a new Vray material. Double click on it and rename it to fabric. Let's add a texture to the diffuse map. Select the fabric diffuse. Assign the fabric material to the headboard. Click on the Show Shaded Material command and let's also assign it to the armchairs, the bed base, some of the pillows, and on the window pillows. Hit Render. I believe this is looking beautiful, so contrary to the wood material, we get a realistic fabric just by adding a texture to the diffuse map, simply because this type of material doesn't have any reflections. If we want it to be velvet, then we would have to add many more attributes than just the diffuse map. Let's create one more fabric to apply to the curtains. And let's do a crop render. When we do crop renders, if we want to see a bigger preview, we can increase the resolution. Up here, you can see the resolution of this render. If we go to the render setup, we may have set here 1285 by 800, but since we do a crop render, it renders only part of the window. First, make sure to enable the lock and then let's make the height 1100 pixels. The width adjusts automatically. Now the preview window got bigger and I can see the fabric better. If I type 1500 pixels, although I increased the size, the preview looks smaller. Why is that? When up here you see 50%, this means that the render you see here is 50% smaller than what is actually being calculated. It shows the 50% preview, but it calculates 100% of the resolution we have asked. This happens because my screen's resolution is smaller than the one I set for my render and it can't fit it in. I hope it makes sense. Let me take this back to 800 pixels. Let's create a new Vray material. And let me reposition it below the others. Personally, I prefer to put one material below the other since on the left side of its material I need space for other nodes that I may need to connect to the materials. Double-click anywhere on the new Vray material and open its parameters. Let's rename it to glass. Most young artists forget to double-click on the new material and so they go and adjust the wrong material. This will happen to you many times, but at the end you will learn, believe me. Just try to be careful and to always double-click first on the material you are about to adjust. In the basic parameters rollout, next to the diffuse color, we see the preset setting. If we click on the custom button, a drop-down menu appears that contains some pre-made materials that Vray offers. Let's select glass. The preview adjusts and gets transparent. Let's apply this material to the bathroom doors and to the vases on the nightstand and the glass on our coffee table. It's like the objects disappeared because the material is clear glass. Let's do a render. These pre-made materials are really good, especially to use them as a base. You see how quick it was to create a glass, and then we can go and adjust their settings based on what we want to achieve. Let's play around a bit with our glass. Open the material editor and double-click on the glass to open its settings. We have talked about the diffuse and the reflect, so now let's see the next parameter here, the refract. Refract has the same philosophy as the reflect setting, which means that when the refraction color is black, our object will be solid, there will be no opacity. If the refraction color is white, our object will be fully transparent, like here with the clear glass. And we play with the values in between to adjust the transparency of our material. If instead of white we make the refraction color a gray one, let's say a value of 180, now we can see the objects in the viewports, and if we render, they are semi-transparent. That's how we also create a colored glass. We put in the diffuse the color we want. We make the reflection white, since the glass is a reflective material, and we play around with the refraction color depending on how transparent we want our material to look. Later on, I will show you more techniques on glasses. Let's now move on to our floor. You should know how to make it by yourself based on what we have said so far, but let's see it together. Create a new Vray material. Let's apply a texture to the diffuse map. You can either set the reflections as a color or add a texture. I will make it a light gray, a value of 164, and I will set the reflective glossiness to 0.8 to blur the reflections. Let's produce a render to see how it looks. Let's now see the mirror finish. Create a Vray material and rename it to mirror. A mirror is a fully reflective surface, so we don't really care what color the diffuse has, even if it's red, green or blue, since it reflects fully the color of the surface won't be visible. Since it reflects fully, the color of the surface won't be visible. Go to the reflect color and set it to white. This way, our surface will reflect a lot but not fully. It won't look like a mirror. To get the mirror effect, we also need to disable the Fresnel reflections. You will understand this better on the part where I analyze how to create the various metals in Vray. Let's apply it on the mirror and do a crop render. That's great. The next material we will see is the view we have outside the windows. We could follow the same steps and create a Vray material and apply the photo we have outside the windows. Actually, let's do that. This looks good, but sometimes you may have a problem if you follow this technique, because depending on your scene and on the result you are after, you may want to adjust the brightness, the illumination of your background. That's why, for my backgrounds, personally, I always use the Vray Light material. Let's see it. Go to the material editor, right-click in the active view and choose Materials, Vray, Vray Light MTL. As its name implies, it's a Vray material that also casts light. Let me double-click to see its settings. Next to the color, click on the No Map button, choose Vray Bitmap, and select the background photo. Or simply drag this Vray bitmap and connect it to the light color, since we loaded earlier in the Vray material. Let's apply it to our background. Click on the Vray bitmap and click on the Show Shaded material and select to see it on the Vray Light material. And although we have enabled the command, we can't see the image in the viewport. It shows as a white illuminated color. But let's render, and here we can see the photo. So this is a bug. In order to see the photo, make the color instead of white, black. And now we can see the photo in the viewport. I usually enable the compensate camera exposure option to match the exposure of the camera to our background. And then I play with the value next to the color. So let's first render with value 1. Our background looks quite dark. If we type 10, it will make the background 10 times brighter, and so on. And so we can adjust the brightness of our background photo. If you go to the floor plan, you will see that I have created 2 planes to apply a background photo. One here, which is visible from Vray Cam 001, and one here, so that if we set a camera inside the bathroom facing this wall, we can see what is outside these windows. Let's also do a render here. Applying what we have said so far, I want you to assign materials to the remaining objects of our scene. At the end, we want to get this result. So create a black metal and assign it to the blinds, the ceiling tracks, the floor lamp, the pendants and the switches. Make a fabric for the pillows and the bed throw, and so on. Feel free to improvise and change the materials to the ones you would like and send me to see your results. Hi everyone! In this video I will show you the websites I visit to download the 3D models I use in my projects. There are many sites out there that offer free 3D models. I won't start naming all those. Our aim is to produce a high quality render, and this means to use high quality models. You can't have one without the other. The first site I use is Design Connected. What does this site do? It basically sells high quality 3D models, but it also has the freebies menu so that you can test the quality of their models. It has more than 400 free models, so that's a really good start for you. And not really a start, if you check my renders, I always use their models, either free or purchased ones. What I love about this company is that not only the quality is exceptional, but it also gives you the same model in different materials, and this makes your life so much easier. Let me take as an example the Mobile 100 pendant. They give it for free in gold and in black. Here you can see the supported renderers, so it's available for Vray, Mental Ray, Corona, etc. And you can also see all the available file formats. So they have adjusted their models to basically cover everyone, and I like that because it shows a thoughtful company. Before I move on to the next website, let me give you one more advice. Although in this video we are talking about high quality 3D models, you should also keep those in mind for your materials as well. I use V-Ray for what now maybe 12 years. I will still almost never create a material from scratch. So when I want to create, let's say, a gold metal or an antique gold, a glossy black finish, a matte black, and so on, I will always find the finish I want on one of those objects. I will download the 3D model and merge it in my project, and then I will steal the material and apply it to my object. It doesn't mean that it will 100% suit you, but at least you will have a good base to work on. The second website I use is Model Plus Model. As before, there are some collections or separate models that you can buy, but there is also the free menu. The third site is Evermotion. And that's the website I used when I first started my career as a 3D renderer. This website is good to not only buy 3D models but to also keep up with the latest news in the 3D industry. Now, if we go to the shop menu, this website, apart from 3D models, offers interior and exterior scenes. If you click, for instance, at the collections menu and then select Arc Interiors, you will find collections of interior scenes. As I said before, when I first started working as a renderer, what I would do is to buy some interior scenes from Evermotion. I would open them and break them down. The lighting setup they had applied, the camera setup, the rendering settings. I would study the materials they used and take notes from all those. If you do that in multiple scenes and you start understanding how another 3D artist produces a photorealistic result, then slowly you will start understanding how to apply the same techniques and the same steps to your renders as well. Unfortunately, Evermotion doesn't have a free menu, but they offer one model for free on every ARC models collection. So if I go to collections, select ARC models, and then click on volume 224, let's say, on the right side you can see the free sample and download it. Another website I use daily, and I'm sure you will love, is 3D Sky. So how does this site work? While the other three websites I mentioned have their own 3D modeling team, in this website anyone can upload a 3D model. Depending on the quality of the model, it will pass as a pro model if it's good quality, and as a free model if the quality is below average. So you pick a category from here, let's say bed, then you can choose if you want to see all the models, only the pro or the free ones, and then you can select the model you like to download it. Another website with similar philosophy to 3D Sky is TurboSquid. The similarities are that in both sites anyone can upload a 3D model. Both sites have free models and models to buy, and the main difference is that in 3D Sky, the pro models have a fixed pricing of $7 per model, while in TurboSquid, the artist that uploads the model can choose the price he wants to sell it at. So these are my recommendations. I hope that you will also start using them from now on and they will help you with your projects. Now that we have reviewed the various websites that you can go and download 3D models, let's go to our scene and put some nice accessories that we will download from those websites. Open the file New Accessories and let's delete the accessories that I have already placed. Let's set up a close-up shot over the left nightstand. I will create a new Vray physical camera. See its point of view and elevate it. You can set the camera as you wish, you don't have to copy my steps. The render looks quite dark, so let's adjust the camera's exposure. Let's also add all the necessary layers. And let me also turn down these IES lights using the Vray light mix. The render has a lot of noise. That's because, as before, I have set to do 5-minute test renders. Once we are happy with the result, we will increase the rendering time to get a clean image. Let's now go to the 3D Sky website, click on 3D models, choose decoration, and I will click on the decorative set. Personally, I always use the Pro category because I have told you I want my models to look perfect. But if you're a beginner, there is no point in spending money if you are not being paid from a project. So in this case, you use the free category. Moreover, I will also scroll down here and choose Vray, which means that it will show me models that have Vray materials. If you don't narrow down your research and buy a Corona 3D model, you can import it in the Max file, but the model will have a black color. It won't recognize the materials, so you'll have to set them. Let me select this model. I will click here to pay it and then choose the number of Pro models. You have to buy at least 2 models and then decide the payment method and hit pay. The model starts downloading in a zip format. Unzip it. So now we will go back to the 3ds Max file and go to the menu File, Import, and choose Merge. Be careful here. When you choose Merge, you can only select Max files to merge in your scene. If you want to select another format, let's say DWG or 3ds, then you need to select Import and Import. So let me repeat it. You choose Merge for Max files and Import for any other file format. Go to the folder where you saved your 3D model. If you see more than one versions of Max, make sure to select the Vray option and choose Open. The Merge dialog box opens. When here you see brackets, this means that our object is a group. When it's not a group and our object consists of more than one sub-objects, you will see all the objects here. So always click on All to be sure that everything will be selected and click OK. When an object is merged in our scene, it is selected and you can see its name here. You can go and rename it, let's say, flower set. Then I will click on this command Zoom Extends All Selected so that the selected object gets centered in the viewports and we can see where it is. Choose the Select and Move command and drag it over the nightstand. Select both the decor element and the cabinets holding the Shift key, right-click and choose Isolate Selection. Move the object to the correct position. If we don't want to keep all this object and want only part of it, then here is what we're gonna do. Select the group and go to the menu Group and choose Open. Now the group is open and we can select the sub-object it consists of. I will select and delete the mirror, the frame, and this candle. And I will reposition a bit the other items to spread them on the nightstand. When I do my composition, I prefer to click here next to the viewport's name and enable the edged faces. As the name states, it highlights the edges of the objects in the viewport and now we can clearly see all our objects. For instance, this glass is clear glass and we couldn't see it before, but now with the highlighted edges it is visible. So it's good to use the edged faces, especially when you do compositing, so that you can clearly see all your objects. Once we are done, we can select one of the sub-objects, Go back to the menu group and choose Close. Let's right-click and choose End Isolate. And let's do a crop render. Most of the times, the textures of the merged objects are not recognized, so we only see colors and not textures. The leaves here are rendered as white, and same goes for the two books. How do we load the textures? Go to the menu File and choose Reference, Asset Tracking Toggle. Every time you enter this dialog box, first click on the Refresh button. Here we see all the textures of our scene. If in the status column you see file missing, then those textures are not loaded in our max file, and so the scene is not rendering properly. Go and select the first missing map, hold the Shift key and select the last missing texture. Then click Paths, Set Path. Click on the three dots button and go to the folder that contains the textures of your object. Be careful, not the folder that contains all the files in general, but the folder that contains the maps, the textures. Click Use Path and OK. Now, in the status column, instead of file missing, you see that the status changed to OK. Let's do a crop render. Now we can see the textures. And do you see why it's great to use the websites I told you to get your models? It's not just the models, it's also the textures and materials that come with them. Now we can, let's say, steal this white satin finish to apply it to other parts of our design. How do we do that? Open the material editor, and to steal a material, simply click on the Pick Material from Object command and click on your object. The material transfers in the material editor. What I would advise you here is, before you enable this command, to create a new view so that you won't get confused when one material gets on top of the other. More specifically, go to the Active View and right-click next to the View 1 and select Create New View. We have an empty brand new surface. Now click on the Pick Material from Object and here it is. You can select the view you want to be active. You can create multiple views and you can also delete views. Right-click and choose Delete View. Don't worry, the material is still applied on the object. It's just no longer available in the material editor, but if you need it, simply repeat the steps. So let me assign this material to the switch over here and do a new render. We can also adjust the materials of the objects we merge by putting them in the material editor and adjusting their parameters. Going back to the asset tracking, it's important that you do this process every time you import a new model and not at the end once you have merged all your objects, because if you do so, you will find it hard to understand which texture refers to which object. Let's go and merge one more object. Let's now go to the Design Connected website, to the Freebies menu, and select the magnifier lamp. Select the .max file, and the zipped folder will download. Unzip it, and inside you will see more zipped folders. This pendant comes in two sizes. I am interested in this one, so I will unzip it. And we also need to unzip the maps folder. Let's go and merge this file. First, I will select the pendant we already have, right-click and choose Hide Selection. I will also hide the two Vray lights. Now, go File, Import, Merge, and choose the Vray file. Select it and click OK. Go to All for Windows and press the Zoom Extends All selected command. Here is our pendant, so let's move it above the nightstand. Let's go to the Asset Tracking to load its textures. And hit the refresh button. I can see that it recognizes the texture, but if it doesn't in your PC, then select the texture and go Paths, Set Path, and go to the folder. Let's also reposition the IES light . And I want to turn this light off, but since they are instances, if I do so, the other one also turns off. How can we separate them? Select one of the two, go to the Command panel and to the Modify tab, and right-click on the Vray IES light over here. And choose Make Unique. Now they are no longer instances and we can adjust them separately. So we can go and turn this off. Let's adjust the crop area and do another render. Do you see how nice the metal of this pendant looks? And we didn't even have to try. It's ready-made. And we can steal this finish and apply it to other objects as well. Let me make one more comment on the object, the textures and the asset tracking. All the maps in 3ds Max follow a path. And you can see this path in asset tracking. If you change the location of your folders or the location of your Max file, the textures won't be linked any longer, so if you render, you will only see the colors and not the textures. So every time you relocate a folder or your Max file, you need to relink the maps. Let's see more advanced things now. If I open this group and select the home perfume, although it consists of 3 different things, the sticks, the bottle and the rope, when I select it, it's all one object and it's not a group. We said that we recognize a group because here it shows with bold letters. And even if we go to the menu group, see, we don't have the open option. So if let's say we want to make the sticks a white color, same as this sculpture, If I open the material editor and apply this material, it goes to the whole perfume. Let me undo this step. So what happens here? Let's create a new view and put this material in the material editor. What we see here is a multi-sub-object material, which means a material that consists of more than one materials. And here we see the three sub-materials it consists of. We have the glass, the sticks, and the rope material. So if we want to change the color of the sticks, we will go to this Vray material, double-click on it, and change the diffuse color. If, as I said earlier, we want to make the sticks same finish as the sculpture, then we also need to pick the sculpture finish and connect this to the multi-sub object and to number 2 where the sticks are. Now the sticks got white. If, let's say, we want to make the rope the same fabric as the one we have on the headboard, we will pick this material and then connect it to number 3 where the rope is. Does it make sense now how we adjust a multi-sub-object material? If finally, let's say, I want to make the perfume glass same as this glass, I will pick it and oops, here we have another multi-sub-object material. Nothing to worry about. We see here that we have two materials, the glass and the metal of the spoon. We will pick the glass that we are interested in and connect it to number 1, which is the glass of the perfume. Let's do a new render. Okay, let me take it back to its original look and connect the initial materials. We did that so that you can understand how to adjust a multi-sub object material. In this course, we only see the rendering part, not the modeling part, but let me show you a few things that you might find useful while you are working with this type of objects. Let me select the perfume and isolate it, and also switch to a perspective view so that I can see it better. Let's select the object and go to the Modify tab. Up here, you see this editable poly, and if we click on the arrow, we have these options. The same options can be found here in the selection rollout. So this is the vertex, this is the edge, this is the border, the polygon, and the element. What do they do? Let's select the element first. It turns into a highlighted blue, and let's click on the bottle. Now let's click on the sticks and on the ropes. So when the elements command is enabled, it allows us to select elements of our object. Those elements turn into a red color to understand what we have selected. So let's say that I want to elevate the ropes. I will go to an elevation viewport so that I can select them with a window and then push them higher using the select and move command. Or if, let's say, we don't want the sticks, we can select them and press delete. let me undo this step. If we select polygon, then we can only select the polygons of the object. In order to understand the polygons, you need to enable the edged faces. If we click on Edge, then we can select edges. And with Vertex, we can select vertices. 3ds Max, to help us out, puts blue dots on the vertices, and once we select them, they turn into red. From these options, I usually use the vertex and the element. So I can select the top of the sticks and push them higher. Once you finish modifying your object, don't forget to come back here and disable the command. Otherwise, you are locked in this selection and you can't do anything else. If we right-click and isolate, if we try to select any other objects, we can't, since we are locked in the vertex option. So first, we need to click on it to disable it, either from here or from the selection rollout. Let me isolate again the object. Select it and go to the Modify tab. Select Element and let's scroll down to find the polygon, Material IDs rollout. Here we have two fields, the Set ID and the Select ID, and let's also open the Material Editor. Let's click on the glass bottle. It informs us that this is Material ID 1, and if we see the material in the Material Editor, yes, this is indeed ID number 1, the glass. If we now select a stick, here it informs us that this is Material ID 2, and if we check the Material Editor, yes, this is the stick's material. We were lucky, and on this object the 3D artist had given clear names to each submaterial, but sometimes they might name them 1, 2, 3, 4, and we may have an object with 10 submaterials here, and we will find it hard to understand which material refers to which part. In these cases, what we need to do is the following. Come here to the Select ID field, type 1, and click on Select ID. It automatically selects the part of the object that is assigned the first submaterial. And you can then come in the Material Editor and rename it so that you can recognize it. Then go again to the Select ID field, type 2 and click on Select ID, and you keep doing that until you rename and recognize all the materials. As we said before, once you are done, don't forget to disable the element button. Let's now say that we want to put these sticks in this vase. How can we do that? First, let's isolate the two objects. Select the perfume, enable element, select the sticks, and then go to the Edit Geometry rollout and click on Detach. Let's name the detached part Sticks and click OK. What does the detach command do? Well, as its name states, it detaches the selected part from the object and now it is a new object. So, if we try to select the sticks, we can't because we still have enabled the element and we can select only parts of this object, the home perfume. Let's disable element. And now we can choose the sticks and using the Select and Move command, put them in the vase. That's all with the multi-sub-object material and on how you can adjust models and materials that you merge in your 3ds Max scene. In Vray 5, it is introduced for the first time the Vray Asset Browser, which is a really cool feature. If you have an older version of Vray, then you need to upgrade to gain access to it. Go to the Vray toolbar and click on the Vray Asset Browser. If you don't see the Vray toolbar, right-click on an empty spot up here and select the Vray toolbar. On the left side, we see a list of material categories like bricks, concrete, fabrics, and so on. And on the right side, we can see the preview of the materials each category includes. How do we use these materials? Let's push the Vray Asset Browser to the side and open the material editor. Let's create a new view here. From the Vray Asset Browser, go to Stone for instance. And let's select this one, right-click and choose Add to Scene. Instantly, we can see this stone material in the material editor. See why I created a new view? So that our new material doesn't fall on other materials we have already created. When we see a black preview on a Vray bitmap, this usually means that it didn't load the textures, unless you have selected the black texture, dark black wood or marble, let's say. To load the missing textures, we will use the asset tracking. Go to File, Reference, Asset Tracking Toggle. Click on the refresh button, and then go and check where it says Missing. Select the maps that are missing and go Paths, Set Path. Click on the three dots button and go to the folder that contains the textures. If you are not sure where these maps are located, simply type the name of your map in your computer's search bar and choose Open File Location. So this is the path you need to follow in asset tracking. Click Use Path and OK. Now, in the status column, the file missing changed to OK and we are good. Let's assign it to our floor. Don't forget to enable the Source Edit material in Viewport so that you can see a preview of the material in the viewport. Let's produce a render. Let's go and try one more material. If we don't create a new view, then the new material will go on top of the other one and we will get confused. So first, either move the previous material or create a new view. You can see here that the textures are missing. Let's go again to File, Reference, Asset Tracking. As we said before, don't forget to hit the refresh button. Let's do a render. We have seen so far the diffuse, the reflect, and the refract parameters. We haven't seen the bump parameter. Let's set a close-up camera on the pillows. To do so, instead of creating a new camera from scratch, I will select the one we set over the left nightstand. So I will select both the camera and the target. I will hold the Shift key and drag, and so I create a clone of the existing camera. And I will choose Copy. Let's see the point of view of this camera. And let's also elevate it. Cool. I'm mainly focusing on the pillows because I want you to understand the new techniques we will see now. I usually get my maps from textures.com, so let's do it together. Go to textures.com and click on the PBR materials. And for our example, let's choose a leather. So let's click on the fabrics, leather and paper. And let's pick the padded leather. I want you to scroll down, go to the albedo, which is the diffuse map, and click here to download it. Then go to the height and do the same. And to the normal map. Open the material editor, create a new Vray material. Assign it to this pillow and apply the diffuse map we just downloaded. Enable the associated material in viewport so that we can see the texture in the camera's viewport. Let's produce a render to see how it looks. This is okay, but it's not realistic, meaning that it doesn't give us the feeling that this texture is three-dimensional, that this is a padded pillow. So this is when we need to add a bump map. Open the material editor. Right-click, go Maps. Vray bitmap. And select the height map we downloaded earlier. And connect it to the bump map. Produce another render. There is a slight difference, but I want to make the effect more bold, so I will go to the Vray material settings, scroll down to find the maps rollout, and the bump by default is set to 30%. I will make it 100% to make the effect stronger and do one more render. Can you see the difference now? It immediately gives us the feeling that this surface is indeed padded. It has bumps and it doesn't look anymore like a wallpaper as before. Play around with the bump percentage depending on how strong you want the effect to be. So, how does a bump map work? Bump creates the illusion of depth on our surface. We use grayscale images, and the parts of the image that are bright towards white, they get pulled out of the surface. And the parts of the image that are dark towards black get pushed into the surface, and that's how we get the illusion of depth. Let's now see the normal maps. Go to the material editor and disconnect the bump map. Right-click in the material editor, go Maps, Vray normal map, and connect it to the bump map. Then right-click again and go Maps, Vray bitmap, and select the normal map we downloaded earlier and connect it to the normal map. Let's produce a render to see how it looks. The result we get is actually pretty similar to the one we got with the bump map. How does a normal map work? Normal is a newer and, let's say, more improved type of bump. In this method, the bumps we get are not real as well, and the main difference is that a normal map uses RGB information and not grayscale. This makes it harder, at least for me, to create them in Photoshop, so when I don't find this texture online along with my diffuse map, I prefer to use a bump map, since it's way easier for me to make a grayscale image from the diffuse map. And now let's see the displacement map. Go to the material editor and disconnect the bump map. Connect the height map we used earlier in bump to the displacement. The displacement effect is usually pretty strong, so I advise you to start with a value of 2 to 5%. Let's try 5 and produce a render. As its name implies, this type of maps physically displace the surface to which they are applied, so they are usually altering the geometry of the surface. And like a bump map, a displacement map consists of grayscale values. Be careful in displacement not to use high values. Let me try 100 for instance, which was the default value. You can see now that the surface gets distorted. As I said earlier, I usually play with values between 2 and 5. From personal experience, I use bump and normal maps when I have a wood surface or fabrics, and in general in surfaces where the extrusion is light, while I use displacement maps when the extrusion is stronger, like a brick wall, concrete or roof tiles, for instance. In the material editor, we can go and delete any of the materials we have created by selecting all the nodes of the material and pressing the delete key from our keyboard. If we delete a material that we have assigned to the scene, the material is no longer in the material editor, but it remains on the objects we have assigned it. If we want it back in the material editor to edit it, we will click on the Pick Material from Object command, click on the object, and now the material is back in here. Personally, once I am done with a material, I prefer to delete it from the material editor so that I have a clean surface here for my next material and I don't get distracted by the many nodes. But that's a personal choice. When you delete a material, what you should be careful of is to select the whole material. If you first select this node and delete it, then you change your material. You basically ask for the texture to be deleted and only have a color to your object. So let me repeat it. When you want to delete a material, make sure you select the full material with all its nodes before pressing the delete button.